If you enjoy my videos, please visit my Patreon page and look into becoming a patron. The link is just below this video. Conn of the 100 Battles sat on the great grave mound he had raised for his dead queen. He was desolate, unable to think of the good of his kingdom, unable to effectively rule. This state of affairs went on for too long, and finally he knew that he needed to shake himself out of it. Perhaps if I walked by the sea, the sound of the waves and the clean air would wash some of this gloom away, and I'd be able to see things more clearly, he thought. So he took himself off to Howth to walk on the beach there, leaving his son Art in charge of the kingdom. Now, it was just about this same time that something remarkable was happening in the land of promise, a part of the other world. A woman called Beikva was being sent out of that world into the world of men. Some say that she was banished for breaking the marriage laws of the gods. Some say that messengers were sent to all the she-mounds in Ireland, warning them not to give her shelter, and they wouldn't be wrong. For her part, Beikva made the best of things and chose to appear in the world of mortals dressed in her finest clothing. She put on a red satin smock and a long cloak of green silk fringed with gold. She wore sandals of white bronze on her fair white feet, and her hair was just the colour of gold. Her mysterious grey eyes were large enough for a man to lose himself in. Her lips were red as rowans, her teeth a row of white pearls behind them. The people of the other world were sorry indeed that they would no longer be able to look on Beikva. But Beikva had looked through the mists into the world of men, and had seen something. Someone, actually, and had set her heart on him, and that was Art, the son of Conn. But back to Conn himself now. He made his way to Howth, and for hours he paced that beach, telling his troubles to the waves and the wind. He sat down in a little cove to rest, when a movement on the waves caught his attention. A small coracle. Something red and gold and green was in it. Certainly no fisherman, then. It swiftly came toward him and beached, although the lady within it held no oar. Conn shivered. When the woman stood and came toward him, Conn marvelled at her beauty and the richness of her dress. He asked to know who she was, and she said to him, "I am Delvkive, the daughter of Morgan, the magician." Conn felt a stirring when he looked into that fair face and those large grey eyes. "What brought you here?" he asked. "I come in search of a man called Art," she said. "I have loved him from afar. Do you know anything of him?" "I might," said Conn, "since he is my son, and I would not stand in the way of your love for him, but these words are hard for me to hear." "Why hard?" the lady asked. "Because I have no wife," said Conn. "My wife is dead, and I was thinking just now of asking you to marry me." "What am I to do then?" said Beikva. "You must make your own choice," said the king. "Well, if you give me up so easily, perhaps you do not want me after all," teased the lady. "Since you put it that way," Conn countered, "I say that you shall be my wife." But Beikva put a condition on Conn, and it was a hard one. She told him that she would only marry him if he banished Art from Ireland for a year. Conn argued against this, but Beikva insisted, adding that surely things would be less awkward for all of them, considering her feelings. And finally, Conn agreed. Conn and Beikva became man and wife, but in that year of Art's absence, things went badly wrong in Ireland. The cattle were sickly, the crops failed, and if the grass was thin and poor, so were the people. Conn consulted his druids. "It is because of the woman you call Delvkive that this has happened," they replied. "She is not as she seems at all. You must banish her for the sake of your land and your people." But Conn refused, and told his druids to find another way to end the famine. They conferred together, and this is what they told Conn. "You must find the son of a sinless couple, and his blood must be mingled with the soil of Tara, and in this way the famine may be ended." It was about this time that Archer returned to Ireland, so once again Conn left him to watch over the kingdom while he made for the beach at Howth. He found the coracle hidden in the rocks where he and Beicva had left it. He stepped into it, and without oar or sail, it carried Conn off into the deep to search for his sacrificial victim. Long and long he voyaged, with only the stars for his companions. The great creatures of the deep swirled about his boat. Wild storms assailed him, and when he thought he would surely be drowned, the storm ceased and he was becalmed for days, making no headway at all. He came at last to a beautiful island full of apples and wells flowing with wine. He saw a wondrous house thatched with blue and yellow and white wings of birds. It had a door of crystal set on doorposts of bronze. He was made welcome by the queen and the king who lived there. They sat upon thrones of crystal, with their son Shegda between them. Conn was shown all hospitality. He was bathed and dressed, yet he never saw the hands which tended him, nor the hand that led him to the table. When he sat down, only he was served food, but Conn was under a geas that he must never eat alone. They told Conn that it was not the custom of that court for people to eat together, and he said, "But what shall I do? I have trouble enough as it is without breaking my geas." Then Shegda offered to eat with Conn, to save him from bad luck. The queen asked Conn what troubles he had in Ireland. So Conn told her of the famine, and that he sought a boy such as Shegda, for he believed that if such a boy was simply bathed in the waters of Ireland, the famine would end. "Certainly we will not lend you our son for such a ridiculous adventure," said the queen, and the king added his agreement. Conn was downcast, but presently Shegda said, "I must go to Ireland. It is a simple thing to be bathed in the waters if it will bring an end to suffering." So the king and the queen were persuaded, but they made Conn promise that he and all the kings and heroes of Ireland would be bound to keep the lad safe. Conn agreed. When they returned to Ireland, Conn had no choice but to tell his druids what he had done, how he had lied to the boy's parents and sworn on his honour and the honour of all the great men of Ireland that the boy would be kept safe. A council was called, and the druids and warriors argued for days as to what should be done. Finally, it was Shegda who broke the deadlock when he said, "It is a simple enough thing to die. If it will bring an end to the suffering of the kingdom, go ahead and take my life." So the druids made ready a place of sacrifice, and the people gathered to watch Shegda give up his life. When all was in readiness, suddenly an old woman broke in on the scene. She was leading a cow, and the cow had 2 saddlebags hanging down at its sides. "What is happening here today," she asked, "that everyone is gathered?" The situation was explained to her, and she scoffed at them. "If your druids are so wise," she said, "ask them what is in the bags at the sides of this cow." The druids were unable to answer. The woman laughed again and said, "You would be just as well to slaughter the cow and mix her blood with the soil of Tara as to kill an innocent boy." So that was done, and she told them to open the 2 saddlebags. From one bag came a bird with 1 leg. From the other came a bird with 12 legs. The 2 birds immediately fell to fighting with one another, and the bird with 1 leg prevailed over the bird with 12 legs. Everyone was surprised at this. "The bird with 12 legs is all of you great men," said the woman, "and the 1-legged bird is my little son Shegda, who has prevailed over you all. Take my advice, Conn. Put the woman you call Delvchive from you. Banish her from Ireland. She is Beikava, who was expelled from the land of promise, and there will be famine in Ireland as long as she remains." And with that, the woman took the boy and departed from them. Conn just couldn't bring himself to let go of Beikava. The sight of her beauty cheered him, and her presence in the bed made him feel young again. Art and Beikava meanwhile became mortal enemies, united by their ties to Conn and their hatred for one another. One day Art was playing at Feithcol with one of the druids, and Beikava looked on. When the game was over, she suddenly spoke to Art. "A gesh on you, Art, son of Conn, if you will not give me a game for stakes." So Art agreed. They played, and Art won the game. "I demand the wand of Cú Roy MacDara as my forfeit," said Art, thinking that such a thing was impossible to get, and that the search for it would keep Beikava away from the court for a very long time. Beikava set out, seeking the wand in the she-mounds, but everywhere she was refused admittance, until she came to the place where her foster-sister Anya was. Anya began to search for the wand, and quickly found it. Beikava returned to Tara, accompanied by her foster-sister, who was under a cloak of invisibility. She handed the wand to the astonished Art, and demanded a rematch. They began to play, but the unseen hand of Anya was on Art's gaming pieces and caused them to make false moves. Everyone could see that somehow Art was being cheated, but no one could show any proof. "A gesh on you, Art," cried Beikava when the game was hers. "On my honour," replied Art. "Tell me what I must do." "You will eat no food in Ireland until you find Delvchive, the daughter of Morgan the magician." "Tell me where to look for her," said Art. "I will only tell you this," said Beikava. "She is in one of the islands of the sea." Now it was Art who cast himself into the sea in a coracle. Island to island he sailed, seeking Delvchive, but no one had heard of her. Finally, after a long and weary search, Art came to an island fairer than any he had ever seen. It was full of wild apples, with beautiful bird song coming from every bough. Fragrant flowers grew there in abundance, with humming bees, ever beautiful, flying round about them. He came to a house thatched with the purple and white wings of birds, and in that house dwelt a host of hospitable women, all young, all beautiful. And the most beautiful of all these women was called Creja, and she set about doing all that was needed to welcome Art in that house, setting out food and drink, and offering him a many-coloured mantle adorned with gold to wear. Then the lady gave Art 3 kisses and led him to a bower all carved from crystal. A place of comfort and luxury, such as Art had never imagined, supplied with cauldrons of inexhaustible food and drink of every kind that Art could desire. For 6 weeks Art stayed in that crystal bower with the lovely Credja. But suddenly, one day, he remembered his quest. He began to take his leave and explained to the woman that he was under a geas to seek Delvkive, the daughter of Morgan. At that, Credja began to recount the many terrible dangers which lay in Art's path. She told of a dark and deadly ocean that must be crossed, and beyond that lay a wood impenetrable and dangerous, with every branch a deadly spear point. Narrow was the path, and should he manage to follow it, there he would find a dark, mysterious house inhabited by 7 hags. In that house they kept a vat of molten lead, and they were awaiting his coming. Worse still was to come should he manage to escape from that house, for he must cross a narrow and dangerous bridge guarded by a giant who no weapon could injure. Next he would come to a gate, and there 2 maidens would offer him cups of welcome. "These are sisters of mine," Credja told him. "Take care only to drink from the cup on the right when they welcome you, for the cup on the left is poison. After that, you will come to the fortress where Delvkive is imprisoned. Around it is a palisade of bronze, and on every point of that palisade is the head of a suitor of Delvkive. 1 stake remains, awaiting your own head." Art began to take his leave, unsure whether these words were intended to help him or merely to discourage him from ever departing the Island of Women. Credja called after him, "There is yet more danger, Art, son of Conn. Beware above all things of Doghead, the mother of Delvkive, the daughter of the king of the Dogheads, for she is the fiercest fighter that ever man met." As Art stepped into his coracle, he thought to himself, "There are so many terrible dangers that I might as well ignore them all." Just as it was foretold, Art did face many dangers, but he slew the 7 hags. He climbed a mountain of ice so slippery that for every step he advanced, he seemed to slip down 10. Exhausted, he finally found his way into a forested glen, but it was full of venomous toads which spat their poison at Art as he hurried past. He came to another mountain, where he slew a long-maned lion which barred his way. He came to a narrow bridge spanning a great torrent, and there the black-toothed giant tried to grab hold of him, but Art was too quick. He grabbed the giant by the ankle and heaved him over the edge of the ravine and made it safely across. In the distance, Art could see the castle of Morgan the magician. He saw how Delvkive was imprisoned in a tower atop a high pillar. He could see her there. She was very beautiful, with golden hair falling down over her long green silken cloak, which partly covered a red satin smock, the same colour as her rowan red lips. Just as Credja had said, 2 women now came forward, offering Art cups of welcome. He was careful only to choose the cup on the right, and so he gained admittance to the fortress. Immediately Doghead was upon him. She was the most formidable warrior Art had ever encountered. Dressed head to toe in shining armour, she came toward him brandishing a sword in each hand. They crossed and recrossed the courtyard, With Art narrowly defending himself, but he could gain no advantage, she harried him along the ramparts of the castle, threatening to overthrow him, but Art was too nimble for that. On and on they fought, until finally Doghead grew careless, and Art saw his one chance. Taking an almighty swing with his sword, he cut the head from her and thrust it onto the one vacant spike in the palisade. Triumphant, Art climbed the stairs of Delchaive's tower. She welcomed him with all her heart and embraced and kissed him. But just when all seemed well, Morgan the magician appeared, and he too began dueling with Art. Tired though he was, Art had little choice but to fight him. It was a different kind of fight, however, for as well as sword play, Morgan used magic against Art, so that he hardly knew where his opponent was. Morgan would be behind him one moment, and before him the next. Then Morgan caught sight of the head of his wife on the spike where Art had put it. He grew angry, and with that anger he grew reckless, for what king has heart to rule when his queen has been taken from him? And once again the victory was with Art. Art and Delchaive embraced one another, and gathering up what treasure they could carry, they made for the coast where, as if by magic, they found the coracle waiting for them. It carried them safely and with remarkable swiftness back to Ireland. As the couple were approaching Tara, Delchaive sent word ahead to Beicova that she must leave and depart from Ireland forever. No one knows for sure where she went. Some say to England. And so Ireland was spared the utter destruction of endless famine, and everyone was prosperous and happy, and soon it was Art who ruled in Tara.